Pokemon Arceus takes the Pokemon series and flips it on its head. Being thrown back in time, we're introduced to the Hisui region, during a time where people actually fear Pokemon, while it's up to the player to explore the region and calm down the noble Pokemon that have been going berserk as a result of the timerift. Each noble Pokemon are protected by their own wardens. These characters are basically like the gym leaders or trail captains of the separate areas of Hisui, split down the middle by the Pearl and Diamond clans. Each warden proves to be capable Pokemon trainers, as well as deeply caring for the noble Pokemon left in their care. But who is the strongest, and who proves not to be much of a challenge? I'm Kyle with Pokebinge, and this is Pokemon Legends Arceus Wardens, weak to powerful. Our bottom spot ranking for our weakest warden is going to Diamond Clan member Mellie. Honestly, it was kind of a coin toss between this guy and our next entry for top spot. Mellie not only comes across as arrogant and self-centered, he sees the noble Pokemon, specifically his Electrode's frenzied state, as a good thing. As the player makes their way towards the Moonview Arena, where Electrode is located, Mellie makes multiple attempts to sabotage their progress. Even though Mellie moves the torches in the Wayward Cave, the player is able to find their way through it. Once they're outside of the cave, however, Mellie challenges the player to Pokemon battles twice in order to keep them from Electrode. After finally being beaten, Mellie allows the player to approach his noble Pokemon to help. Since Electrode is essentially a Pokemon version of a bomb, massive damage could have been done if its frenzied state wasn't cured. What gets Mellie the top spot here is not only his desire to allow the noble Pokemon to continue to live in their frenzied states, but also how much of a hindrance he is, not only to the player, but also to his own clan. His arrogance and actions could have led to damage on a much wider scale if the player had not intervened. Mellie more than deserves the bottom spot here. Following closely behind Mellie, we have the Warden looking after noble Pokemon Ursaluna, Pearl Clan member Caliba. As she is the oldest Warden in the Hisui region, you would think that Caliba would be ranked higher, but no. She has a deep distrust of anyone who does not belong to the Pearl clan, and while she does accept help from the player, it takes some doing. She sees Ursaluna's frenzied state as nothing to worry about, as she knows how the player has calmed down Cleaver. When the Misfortune Sisters steal a piece of the Salatian ruins though, Caliba accepts the player's help. Once the piece of the ruins is recovered, she finally accepts help in getting Ursaluna's fury quelled. Caliba never takes an active role, either in battling or really helping out the player, other than allowing the player to help Ursaluna. Honestly, it is her stubbornness and her short-sightedness that lands her this low in our ranking, since being in a frenzy is not only harmful for the affected Pokemon, but everyone else around them. Ursaluna could have caused serious damage if nobody had stepped in to help. Caliba does care both for Ursaluna and the other Pokemon, but since she doesn't take an active role in really anything, she earns our second weakest spot. Next up, we have Garrix of the Pearl clan. He's the final warden who does not see the noble Pokemon's frenzied state as being a bad thing. Unlike the more populated mainland where Electrode and Ursaluna are found, Garrix Avalugg lives on the Alabaster Icelands. Since both Garrix and Avalugg are on the Snowy Island, the scope of damage that could be done isn't as severe compared to the other Pokemon. That's not to say that Avalugg couldn't cause a great deal of harm if it hadn't been calmed down thanks to the player. Unlike Mellie and Caliba, however, Garrix is open to outside help. Sure, the main player needs to beat him in a Pokemon battle in order to convince him, but after seeing their strength, Garrix both accepts and allows the player's help. Since Garrix simply sees Avalugg as becoming stronger due to its frenzied state, he really doesn't have any malicious intentions. Sure, being in a frenzied state is both dangerous to the Pokemon and others, and Garrix does suffer from the same short-sightedness of previous entries. But as he is willing to accept a player's help and does not actively work against them, Garrix gets placed here. Moving on, we have Iskin. This Diamond Clan Warden lives in the Cobalt Coastlands, with the Pokemon Basculegion being under his care. While he does care for Pokemon, Iskin does come across as a bit of a coward. We're not faulting him for being a little timid when the player first meets him. However, with him even unable to discuss Ghost-type Pokemon without getting spooked out, does dock his character a couple points. Being scared is a natural emotion, sure, but since Iskin really doesn't work through his fear until the player completes the task of catching Dusclops in order to make Basculegion's favorite food, we have to hold it against him. While he does help the player in being able to ride Basculegion, Iskin really doesn't seem to become a stronger warden throughout the game. hence his weaker ranking. Arizou of the Diamond Clan comes in next. She's the warden who informs the player of Ursaluna's frenzy. However, while she does want to help the noble Pokemon's frenzied states to be taken care of, Arizou is determined to help Lilligant's condition on her own. After the player helps our Ursaluna, the player is able to have the Pokemon in finding Arizou in the Crimson Mirelands. While she was able to create bombs in order to cure Lilligant's frenzy, Arizou gets injured in the process, spraining her ankle after being chased by a Pokemon. Since she can't help Lilligant herself due to being hurt, Arizou agrees to allow the player's help in getting Lilligant back to normal. Arizou definitely puts a lot of pressure on herself as a warden, and while it is admirable for her wanting to help Lilligant, she does not always seem to think her plans through. But as she is more proactive with her situation of a frenzied Pokemon, and is willing to work with others, she earns a ranking here. Next we have the final warden of the game, Diamond Clan member Sabi. She leads the player on a pseudo hide-and-seek game throughout Alabaster Island, using her noble Pokemon Braviary to fly away multiple times. She doesn't do this with any negative intentions though, as she just has a playful personality. After she's able to lead the player to the Snow Point Temple, she has a series of puzzles that the player needs to work their way through before facing her in a Pokemon battle. After she is defeated, Sabi allows the player to call on her Braviary to fly to anywhere in the Hisui region. She's later encountered with Adamant, where she helps the player in locating the powerful legendary Regigigas. She does have the player jump through a lot of hoops before helping them out, but as she is relatively young, we're chalking up her actions as a lack of maturity than anything else. Plus, she's willing to help the player out in finding Pokemon as strong as Regigigas. Polina of the Pearl Clan is up next. She's the only warden whose noble Pokemon isn't either in a frenzied state or a rideable Pokemon when first encountered. Polina has been the warden of a young Growlithe after the original noble Pokemon Arcanine had passed away, due to trying to rescue Growlithe drowning. Rather than trying to get the young Pokemon to evolve, Polina decided to let Growlithe live in peace without taking the noble mantle. This decision led many of the wardens to either look down on her or question her decision. After the Misfortune sisters kidnap a Growlithe, Polina's Pokemon evolves into Arcanine in order to protect its friend. Unfortunately, the newly evolved Arcanine is also thrown into a frenzied state after it gets struck by lightning. After the player is able to calm down the Pokemon, she sees that Arcanine is ready and strong enough to take on the role of her noble Pokemon and will watch over him as his warden. The reason why we're ranking Polina so strongly is solely based on her convictions. And while it did unfortunately take a Growlithe to be kidnapped, Polina sees firsthand how strong her noble Pokemon could be, which was a great learning lesson for her, and seeing her interactions with Arcanine and her promises to both herself and the noble Pokemon, she definitely earns her ranking. Our Bronze Medal of Powerful goes to the youngest warden, Leon of the Pearl Clan. Even though he is young, he has proven he is stronger than some of the most seasoned wardens. With his cleaver being in its frenzied state, Leon has previously accepted help from members of not only his own clan, but the Diamond Clan and Galaxy team as well. With each attempt resulting in the challengers to be severely injured, however, Leon stands guard of the clearing where his noble Pokemon is found. He does require the player to beat him in a Pokemon battle before accepting their help, like previous entries on our list. But after we learn that multiple people were hurt in trying to help Cleaver, this can be interpreted as Leon trying to protect others, not just his own noble Pokemon. Really, we can't say anything negative about Leon. He cares deeply for Cleaver, is willing to accept help outside of his own clan, and proves himself to be a capable Pokemon trainer. The only reason why we can't rank him any higher is because he is a kid, but seeing the path that he seems to be on, it's likely that he could grow to be the strongest warden later on. The first warden we encounter in the game, Diamond Clan member Mia, earns the Silver Medal of Powerful. She's found in the Obsidian Fieldlands, looking after the noble Pokemon Wardeer. Since her noble Pokemon is one of the few that was not affected by the Time Rift and sent into a frenzied state, Mia doesn't require their help in that area. However, she tells the player of the alpha Pokemon Kricketune, which has been causing trouble for both Pokemon and people in the Fieldlands. She accompanies the player to where Kricketune is located, asking the player to defeat it to chase it off. Once the battle is over, Mia also helps tell the player about rideable Pokemon after her Wardeer approaches them. True, Mia doesn't have as much interactions with the player as some of the other wardens, but we're placing her this high in our ranking, both due to her knowledge of Pokemon and the fact that she helped raise Adamant, the leader of the Diamond Clan. Seeing what a strong and great leader Adamant is, as well as Mia's character, We feel like more than just a little bit of her influence rubbed off on Adamant. Mia is absolutely a strong warden and an all-around great person, and more than deserving of our silver medal of power. The player isn't the only one who finds themselves thrown back in time. Our gold medal of powerful warden goes to Ingo of the Pearl Clan. Like we said, Ingo is not originally from the Hisui region. Despite that, however, he was able to join the Pearl Clan and prove to be strong enough to become one of their wardens. Ingo not only helps the player, but as his memories start to return, he informs others on how Pokemon and people live in harmony in the future. Ingo has a deep connection to his noble Pokemon, Sneasler, and after the player is able to make it through certain areas of the Coronet Highlands, Ingo allows the player the ability to call on Sneasler, granting them the ability to climb rocky walls. During the course of his interactions with the player, more of Ingo's memories return, which he uses to educate others. Ingo definitely wants a brighter future, not only for his clan, but for everyone. We can only hope that more of his memories return in time, and Ingo can further the people of Hisui in accepting and living with Pokemon. But let us know what you think of our ranking. Who do you think the most powerful warden is in Pokemon Arceus? Make sure to hit that notification bell and binge our other Pokemon videos here on PokeBinge. We've got lots of videos in the works on the Pokemon video games, the trading card game, the lore, and much more, so stick around. Thanks for watching.